Hello everybody. So today I actually wanted to talk about living in a tent. It's not going to be a very long video. I just thought this was a good idea for a third topic simply because if you want to get to the Big Island pretty quickly, this may be one of those options that's on your plate. And, considering it's kind of a big deal, especially if you are like Caitlin and I, where we came from an apartment, AC, TV, couches, all those things that are just wonderful luxuries. When you live in a tent, uh, depending on the tent you purchase, you may be giving up some of those nice things. Now, the tent that we purchased is actually from the brand Eureka, and it's a Californian brand. It's called the Northern Breeze 12. Now, the reason that this was the tent of choice is a couple of different reasons. For one, when shopping for the actual tent, Caitlin wanted to purchase a 10 by 10 tent, which is 100 square feet. It's pretty small, but the whole thing was, it's a tent, it's a stepping stone. It's certainly not a final point. The thing that ended up happening was we had to upgrade to the Northern Breeze 12, which is a 12 by 12 tent, so 144 square feet. I believe the price went from somewhere in the $500 range to a $600 range, and I'm glad we had to do that. This tent is not too much space, but just to kind of give you an idea of what that amount of space will give you, we have some totes here. These are towels. There's crafts stuff in the bottom one, like a coloring book, so just kind of fun stuff that we don't want to see get rained out on, or just absorbing the moisture from the air. A laundry hamper purchased at Walmart. It does a decent job. It's a little messy right now, but the main thing I don't like about it is that the bags themselves rip. We have some clothing drawers. There actually are 4 of them, just stacked, also from Walmart. If you're moving to Big Island and you're going to be on the Hilo side, you can go to Walmart or Target. I think if you were to go to the Kona side, you're actually limited to just a Target, but it is a nice Target. They actually did a full revamp of it. It's nice, but we have the option of both here, and Walmart did have cheaper items. Maybe once we get our next place, we're actually considering purchasing another tent, a bigger one, better, longer term. We might start kind of getting better products for our stuff, but this is fine. This is fine. This is our bedding. Now, what I would definitely make sure is clear is that with living in a tent, you might be sleeping on the floor. We actually, before we moved here, we were sleeping on a Japanese futon, just a roll-up bed that was really nice. Had it imported from Japan. Loved it. It wasn't like we were trying to prepare ourselves for this type of lifestyle. We actually had no clue we were going to be doing this when we purchased that Japanese futon. So what I'm getting at is that this is probably a really good option to consider, because you will have the ability to roll it up, free up the space on the inside of the tent, and then at night you can pull out your bedding. And with that being said, you're going to want to make sure that you purchase some type of containing unit, just big old Tupperware box, kind of like you can see here, just a clamp, nothing special, nothing too expensive, but just something to keep it out of the moisture in the day, because mold is coming for you. Anything material, any kind of fabric, it is going to have mold appearing almost instantaneously. The other thing too is fire ants. They're called little fire ants, and they are definitely probably our number one pain in the butt problem that we have to deal with. There really hasn't been a good solution for this, because they just find a way in. But that being said too, the reason I mention them is they seem attracted to the bedding. I mean, you'll go to bed and you'll probably wake up with some fire ants in you. I would honestly say that we probably get bit by fire ants. Caitlin more so than me, at least once a night, and it's a pain. It just sucks. It's not gonna kill you, but it's gonna annoy you. Some totes for food. Now this is a little bit different than the bedding. Walmart sells a tote that has like a styrofoam gasket. The gasket is great because it makes your food completely cut off from airflow, and also those ants. The ants cannot get past it. Since we've done this little upgrade where we're just storing it in a tote, they always found a way in. Since we've done this, the amount of ants that we've had coming into the tent has gone down, as well as keeping them out of the food in general. Because the main thing is when they start to smell that food, it's like they all figure it out at the same time, and suddenly you've got a swarm of it. I was actually considering even enforcing like a no food in the tent rule, because I mean, gosh, they just always appeared in greater numbers like the next 2 days after purchasing food. And so this was a solution that I highly recommend. It's one thing to get a tote with clamps, but if you can find the ones that have this, this one's like a styrofoam gasket. I don't know per se what other ones look like, but anything with a gasket, something that kind of air tights it up, boy, just can't recommend it enough. We purchased this as kind of a nice station. It's got crafts, it's got puzzles, books. Caitlin and I are extremely big readers, and that was actually one of the bigger sacrifices of moving here, is we could not bring our books. We upgraded to Kindles. Well, I did. Caitlin was already on the Kindle wagon. I wanted a bookshelf and books for, you know, future kids of mine, and had to give that up moving here, but maybe we can get that going again someday. And then finally a little desk in the center. Just to kind of make it a little fancy, we actually purchased a rug. The carpet, the kind of the beige carpet that you see here, is actually just an outdoor carpet that we purchased from Home Depot. Wasn't very expensive. I think there are 4 mats here, and it was purely just so that our interior, which would normally just be like a black tarp, didn't look so, just, you know, gave it more of a homey feel. There you go. These are Adirondack chairs. They were originally purchased to be outside, but with the large population of mosquitoes, you know, you just don't want to sit outside as much. So we actually, at the end of the day, when we're making our bed, we'll move these in a corner, stack them. They're nice, but they kind of hurt your back, so yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend them. Oh, one thing I would recommend is a purple pillow. This is a purple pillow. You can't really tell because we've got cover on it, but this pillow is hands down worth it for a couple of different reasons. So one, it is mold resistant. It is a silicone based product. It doesn't have any mold issues. I love the thing. It's a little expensive. It's a $70 pillow. We have 2 of them. But that pillow is great because I do not need to worry about any kind of deterioration from the elements. I do have some other pillows that I'll probably want to replace in a couple of months. This thing is going nowhere. The other thing is it's a high quality pillow, so it kind of helps your back and your neck. If you're going to be switching from a traditional bed, you know, the posts, the springboard, you're going to the floor, kind of like what we're doing, but you might be used to a certain level of comfort, and this might just help you a little bit with your adjustment. I don't think people realize how nice it is to actually sleep on a floor bed. It helps with your back. I just love it so much, and then it saves space because you can roll it up. But something like a purple pillow just kind of makes things a little bit easier. And when you live in Hawaii, I've come to the conclusion that those little stepping stones to make your life just a little bit easier, so you can kind of get used to the rest of Hawaii, the things you're doing outside, the rain, the people. You know, this is just going to give you a little element of comfort that will make your life a little better day by day. The last thing I'd probably mention is we did buy a shoe rack, and it's a bamboo one. The bamboo seems to be okay. It does collect a little bit of mold. I don't think it's actually eating away at the bamboo. Moisture just gets in and settles. But the reason I would say that is because you want to keep your shoes inside. I was keeping them outside for a very short amount of time, and I just realized I felt insecure every time I put on my shoes, because I do worry about centipedes. We've only seen one centipede since we moved here. We've been here about 2 months now. And it was the blue one, the one that you'll find in the wetter part of Hilo. They're apparently reported to be red on the Kona side. So we did see one. It found its way into the tent, and we just happened to see it and kill it. And boy, those things don't die. But what I'm getting at is that having a rack, a place for your shoes that can be inside, not outside, even if your tent is like ours where it's, you know, really breezy and things, you know, the wind and the air, just knowing that I'm not going to stick my foot into a centipede nest just is worth it. I don't ever want to be bit by a centipede. I've heard it's horrible. So this just avoids that problem. Now, that is all the interior of the tent. Now the tent itself. So this tent is really neat because the doors are actually bug netted automatically for you, and we have the tent flaps actually open, so there are zippers in each of the 4 corners of the tent that you can unzip. The tarp that covers this can be removed and used as kind of like a water barrier. Now, a couple things on that. The corners become a little more exposed to water, so while your fronts, your main planes on the 4 sides are pretty well protected, the problem is that rain finds a way in the corners. So what we did is attach this plastic. You can buy like sheets of plastic at Walmart. It's almost like it's the material of a trash bag, but it's not designed to be a bag. It's just plastic. We just put it in the place where we saw water gathering the most, because the rain comes in from certain directions most of the time. It's not coming in from sporadic areas, and that really cut down on the issue with the rain. The other thing we did is we actually did string up tarps on the outside to kind of address that. Here, I'll show you. We're gonna go outside here. I built a when we first did this tent, it was all jungle, trees and whatnot, and we had to clear it, and then we put down mulch to kind of get it a little more level. But I had to build this little stepping area because the incline was pretty annoying. But the tarps that I'm referring to, this is just one of the 4 corners. I did it on all the corners. It needs to be cleaned a little bit, but you see here the tarp. Now, you got to be careful with the rain accumulation. What's going to happen, it happens pretty much every time, is when it rains, the water is going to pool in the lower parts of the tarp. And what that means is that all the water is going to try to be accumulating in a certain spot, and that added weight can really be dangerous. My biggest concern in that situation is that the tarp is going to pull down the tent. Maybe a little bit of paranoia. The tent is supposed to be capable of withstanding a lot of weight, but you just don't want to, you don't want to tease it. So what we actually did is we took a knife and we just let it rain one day, and we just poked little holes in it so that it would be able to drain. What happened next is that leaves and clutter just kind of filled in the hole, but it has improved it a little bit. So it's definitely something I would recommend. but just make sure that the pokes, the little holes that you're going to be creating with a knife or whatever you use, are where you want them to be, because damaging the tarp is kind of a permanent thing, and you know, you just don't want to feel like an idiot later down the road because you made a mistake, like poking the wrong thing over and over. Now you've got a large tarp and you try to repurpose it, and that whole damages the whole process. I don't know if you see them. I will make a video on chickens, jungle fowl chickens, because you will probably experience them if you're living on the Hilo side of Big Island. These guys literally came out of nowhere, and before I knew it, they are here every day. Now for the tent, like I said before, the actual brand is the Eureka Northern Breeze 12. Some of the key things about this tent: it is nice size. They do not sell it on the Big Island, so we actually had to have it imported 1 month ahead of actually arriving here. The way that it was done, and this is all Caitlin here, is she arranged for a store called the Hilo Surplus Store, which is a store located in Hilo, to purchase it on our behalf and have it arrive there. And then when we got here, we just hopped over there and picked it up, paid for it, you know, whatever you want to do. That is a fantastic way to get things here, is having companies ship it for you, like for example Home Depot, Target, Walmart. If you find a product online, they'll sometimes ship it here. I've only run into a couple of items, different items that are not able to be shipped to Big Island. One example is going to be power banks, like for cell phone charging. You're going to want to get those ahead of schedule and bring them with you on the plane. You can do that, but commercial, they cannot actually bring them over here, like Amazon, for example. The tent Eureka Northern Breeze 12. Pros is that it's not a bad price, and it does do what I like. As in, it's got a good size. It has high ceilings, has hooks on the inside that I think are really nice for like hanging little stuff up. My biggest gripe though was easily that it did not come with a floor. I don't know if that's normal for tents that you would purchase, to just be missing a floor. But basically, if we did not do what we did, which is purchase an extra floor attachment, and Caitlin's been sewing it basically from the base of the tent to the tent. If we didn't do that, we would just be standing on the mulch that we had used to create a level surface which the tent sits on. In Hawaii, with these little fire ants, that has just been horrible. It means that anytime there's an exposure, you're definitely going to find those fire ants coming in. I promise you they're gonna do it. They know every hole, nook and cranny, and then they all learn about it. One thing you can do to prevent this is you can use the County Mulch here. County Mulch does have a fire ant repellent quality to it. One second. The County Mulch does have a fire ant repellent quality to it. They say that the ants just don't like it, so I did actually surround the perimeter with the mulch. We did get taro fire ant traps to place on the inside of the tent. I think with those two efforts together, and then also to the sewing, I think it really made a difference. Fire ant has gone down a lot. However, I mean, even this morning I found a few in the bed. So I don't know if there's really a good option for completely living in a tent and then being able to keep those things out. The best solution I can think of is that if you're going to be building, if you're going to be living in a tent, you might try to build a deck. That's actually our next step. Is we're clearing land, we're trying to create the space with all the trees being removed to where we can build a deck and then build a tent on that deck. This will keep us off the ground a little bit. We can seal things a little bit better. And I'll actually make a video on the type of tent that we're going to be upgrading to, because it's a different company. I will not be buying from Eureka again. The company actually is based out of New York, and I think that in New York, maybe their tents are designed for different climates. The tent we're going to be purchasing from the company is going to be based out of Colorado, the next one, and they seem a little bit more in line with what we're thinking. Not as much as I would want, but you know, you start to really get into high cost tents when you start looking around, and this is kind of a nice medium, so it's not exactly what I want, but it's definitely an upgrade from the Eureka tent. The other thing about the Eureka tent that I think I was a little upset by is that the poles to set up the tent, like the support poles, they're made of aluminum, which isn't the problem. The problem is that they have a glue that is put on the inside, and then to keep the aluminum poles together, this glue you know, has all the little links attached. If you've ever built a tent, it's just that bungee cable that is on the inside, and it kind of lets you know that this is all one pole. Well, several of our poles just didn't have that, so we kind of had to figure it out, which wasn't, you know, rocket science. But when you pay $600+ for a tent, it's just a small thing that kind of irks you. You don't want to feel like that's a problem at all. It's just not what you want. Overall, tent living is not bad. I am a little bit concerned about when hurricane season happens, which should be coming up here in the summer. We moved here in the wet season, which is like September to early spring. So we're kind of running out of that wet season. The temperature is fine, but I'm worried about high winds, what that's going to do to a tent. This tent is secured to the ground, but I'm mostly concerned about trees that surround us. Especially the albizia trees I mentioned in another video. Those things are infamous for falling during high winds, and hurricane season, just, you know, that kind of sounds like the time that those high winds are going to be here. So my goal is to get us over to the next tent ground, build a deck, and then have that tent get here. So in terms of timelines, I'm looking at about 1 to 2 months of time to get it done, because again, you've got to account for the tent being shipped across the Pacific over here, which is quite literally about a month, maybe a little bit longer, a couple days after. So you just have to consider that timetable. If you don't already live or sleep on a rolled bed, I would maybe say that's something to look into. I find that some of my friends are very reluctant to do it, but then when they've done it, when we lived back in Kansas, you know, they really liked it. Especially if you're going to be simplifying your life, you might actually, you know, to move here, because again, moving here costs money, and the things you want to bring with you cost money, so you start to really look at stuff that way. You know, is it worth it? You might consider getting rid of your bed early on, and then try out like a futon, something really nice, and that way you can actually bring it with you when you move here, because it'll be able to roll up and it'll be a lot smaller. And again, this is all based on the fact that you don't have a house here. If I could choose to have a house here, I don't know if I would, because I did want to be more, feel the elements a little bit more than not. A house will kind of cut you off from that. My neighbor has a house, and he even reports issues with the fire ants. So if you're trying to get a house because of the bugs, sad story is I don't think you can really get away from those guys. If you do the tent, you'll have to embrace it a little bit more, but you know, you kind of figure things out as when you get here. It's only been 2 months, and we've had significant improvements. We've stalled a little bit on the actual like clearing and stuff, because we picked up jobs, but overall I would say that it's a pretty pleasant experience coming from an apartment to a tent, and thinking, you know, we kind of already knew we were going to be okay with this, because we like to tent camp when we were back in the mainland. But I would just warn you, it's a little different. You're definitely going to want to make sure you get a tent that has some kind of bug netting or something that you can open up the doors, because it will get very stifling and kind of muggy inside the tent. That was actually the main reason we opened ours up. But if you can't find that, you know, you might find yourself kind of regretting that. You might want to really spend some time and even pay a little more to get that added feature where you've got like a separation between the main tent flaps and the bug net. Other than that, I think that's pretty much about all I've got to say. I'm just looking around here to see if I missed anything for you guys. No, I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to go over. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Do subscribe. I'm going to keep trying to make videos for you guys. And just let me know if you need anything. Have a good one.